5 of the Democratic presidential candidates took part in a CNN town hall event last night. Some of the topics discussed included student loans and also health care. Here's some of what you missed.
Medicare for all, single-payer program.
Well, I support Medicare for all. And I support it for a number of reasons.
To make college universally available with free tuition and fees.
The first thing I would do is allow students, and no matter how old they are, former students, to refinance their student loans.
We've got to induce states to carry more of the burden instead of continuing to pass it on to students.
Ed O'Keefe is our man on all things politics. He joins us from the D.C. Bureau. What did you make of last night? I mean, you saw some hits, runs, and errors from the folks there, but what were your takeaways?
Well, first of all, this lasted longer than the Oscars, so we finally found a broadcast that lasts longer than that. It was substantive, and we should appreciate that our colleagues at CNN have organized these to allow these candidates a chance to sort of share their thoughts a little more extemporaneously than we might normally hear. And what's interesting to me is they're now beginning to use these events as an opportunity to launch some ideas. Elizabeth Warren yesterday announced plans that would essentially forgive trillions of dollars in student loan debt that is owed to the federal government. Kamala Harris said that in her first 100 days, if Congress doesn't act on the issue, she would use executive authority to enact some changes in gun policy in this country. Unclear exactly how far she could go on that. And others either responded to that or expanded on some of the ideas that they've shared before. Bernie Sanders, once again, defending his Medicare for All proposal, and Mayor Pete Buttigieg finally filling in the details of where he stands on a few of these different issues.
It was interesting to hear Bernie Sanders say he needs to focus more on foreign policy this time, saying that was something he didn't do as well last time. I thought that was interesting. They all talked about the Mueller report, so we've got let's see, Warren and Kamala Harris now who say let's move forward with impeachment. Here's what Bernie Sanders said about the Mueller report and the idea of impeachment.
But if, and this is an if for the next year, year and a half, going right into the heart of the election, all that the Congress is talking about is impeaching Trump and Trump and Mueller, and we're not talking about health care. We're not talking about raising the minimum wage to a living wage. We're not talking about combating climate change. We're not talking about sexism and racism and homophobia and all of the issues that concern ordinary Americans. What I worry about is that works to Trump's advantage.
Okay. Ed, what are you hearing from the Democrats? I mean, how much are voters saying to them, I want you to focus on impeachment, or I really don't care, I still want to talk about student loans, health care, and the like?
Sure. So on that issue specifically, they don't hear much about it in the early primary states. They don't get asked about it. Because most people who show up to these events are diehard partisan Democrats looking to pick a horse in the race and are of agreement that the president needs to be replaced, whether through impeachment or through an election. And what Sanders is getting at there is the debate that is now roiling the party. There was a conference call yesterday afternoon among House Democrats who talked about this, and there's this argument of let's proceed with impeachment. Congress has to do it. It's within our rights and our powers, and that's the position Elizabeth Warren took last night, versus let's just hold an election and defeat the guy and allow the country to move on that way. And we'll see over the next few months which of those arguments prevails, but certainly something akin to impeachment is going to continue on the Hill, and ultimately 2020 candidates are going to be asked about it, whether they like it or not. The issue for most of them is they're either not in Congress or they're in the Senate, which wouldn't have to deal with this issue until far later on as essentially a jury in an impeachment trial. There are a handful of members of the House who are now running, and virtually all of them have said something along the lines of, we should impeach the guy, or we certainly need to work to defeat him.
What do you think about Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton, former Marine, in his 40s, been in Congress, what, a few terms now?
Right.
So he wants to run for president. I mean,
he is running for president now.
He is, right.
Yeah.
So how does a guy like him punch through?
Well, here's the thing. I think for a while there, he and his team thought that a young military veteran who is in Congress might work. The problem is there's another young military veteran already in the race, Pete Buttigieg, who has seen a real stratospheric takeoff here in the last few weeks. And so Moulton's theory of the case may be more difficult to make now with Buttigieg in the field. But the issue there could potentially be that Moulton can present some more specific ideas, whereas Buttigieg has not done that yet. Moulton has also gone around the country cultivating fellow members of Congress now and a certain brand of Democrat, guys like Connor Lamb from Pennsylvania, a bunch of the other moderates who were elected to Congress this past fall. So he comes out of that moderate, sort of mainstream, Main Street wing of the Democratic Party and understands that a little more moderation might be needed in order to win back those Midwestern states that Democrats lost and win over maybe some Trump supporters.
Our producers are wrapping me up with 2 quick questions. The Vice President, Joe Biden, when is this announcement coming? Is it coming?
Good question, David. It's not an issue of if at this point, it's just a matter of when. We were told Wednesday, it's expected Wednesday, but there are now some indications this morning he may push it back. But I have one source telling us there will be a big public event. We will want you to cover it. We'll let you know when it is.
Bill Weld, the former governor, has said he's going to run against Trump as a Republican. Anybody else saying they're going to run as a Republican?
So far, no, partly because the rules are written in such a way that it makes it virtually impossible for anyone to challenge the president. That's worth another segment's worth of conversation.
Ed O'Keefe, nice tie and sharp suit, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I like that purple on you.
Oh, well, you know, look at this mutual admiration society.